All right, thank you, Raimi. So we're super excited for today's meal, and I wanted to thank Washington Red Raspberries for sponsoring us again. Um, uh, Fortunately, I really love raspberries, and I've had a lot of fun cooking with them. So we're going to be using some frozen raspberries again. So I'm super excited, and I love finding ways to use them in savory manners. And the color's just so beautiful, and they have a nice tartness and sweetness. So thank you so much for your support, and we'll have fun incorporating those raspberries tonight. So today is a truly cleaning out your pantry kind of day, and that's really been our theme. We're all about making substitutions. So, I don't expect you to have, all of the ingredients I have, but I'd love for you to chime in with what you're using. This is truly a clean out your vegetables that might be starting to go grab them. By the way, go ahead and preheat your oven to about 400 if you're going to be cooking along while I'm talking here. But if you have greens that are going bad, pull them out. If you have potatoes that are starting to get soft on the ends, go ahead and grab those. Whatever you have, let's just use it. And I'm always of the mindset, if I have my oven on, if I'm roasting things, I'm just going to throw whatever I can in there, because you can make things like what I'm doing tonight on the fly just by having ingredients lying around. And that tends to be how I do a lot of my cooking, just by prepping ingredients and having them on hand for whenever I need them. So with that, I'm doing 2 grain bowls today. I'm doing and if you're cooking along, don't feel the need to do both of them. I actually might encourage you not to try to get them both done by the time we're done, because I think you might be going a little crazy trying to keep up. But if you want to do prep for one and cook one all the way through, that's totally fine. Or do whatever you want. Just my recommendation. I'm doing a more warm, savory bowl with a pork tenderloin over rice. You can do it over any type of grain, with some roasted veggies. Do roasted sweet potatoes, Brussels sprouts, just because it's stuff I had on hand. Mushrooms I'm going to do on there. And I'm doing that with a fun raspberry balsamic reduction. And then also pickled raspberries, so it'd be really pretty and have a nice acidic bite to it. And then the other dish I'm doing is actually going to be served room temperature or slightly warm or cold, which is more like a Mediterranean kind of summery dish with quinoa, seared shrimp, and some fresh cucumber and tomato, a nice herb vinaigrette. So and I'm going to put some chickpeas in there as well. So you can go either direction. You can go both directions. Just know you can come back and finish the other one later if you don't want to try to get them both done in this time. So very excited. So Uncle Bill, knowing that I've given you like almost, no direction and 20 different types of meals to cook, just for those of you that are just joining us, Uncle Bill is my uncle, obviously, in California, also a sommelier, and he's been very kindly giving us wine recommendations to go with all of our meals. And you are now part of our extended family, so you can call him Uncle Bill too. So Uncle Bill, what do you have for wine tonight?
Well, hello again, Leah. Thank you very much for that wonderful introduction. Now, we recommend these wines. These are suggestions, and the suggestions are to possibly introduce everyone to a different wine, but one that is certainly accessible. I don't want to introduce you to a wine that you're not going to be able to find in your store. So I'm going to recommend 2 wines today. It's almost one wine cultivated 2 ways. For the Mediterranean bowl, I think that calls for a nice dry white wine, and a wine that we see occasionally now, it's becoming much more popular, is a Grenache Blanc. And again, for your father, that's Grenache. And it's a wonderful white wine. Most all the wines we talk about originate in France, but this, you can get a Grenache Blanc from France, but you can also get one certainly from California. That's also a great place where that grape is grown. And Dad is saying funny. Okay. And for the rice and pork, I would pair that with a red wine, and I would do that with a Grenache, period. No Blanc. So we have a white Grenache and a red Grenache. The Grenache Blanc is actually like a mutant of the red Grenache. Red Grenache is also known as Garnacha from Spain. You might see that in the store. And if you think about the Pinots, we have a Pinot Grigio, we have a Pinot Blanc, we have a Pinot Noir. Sort of in the same vein, we have a Grenache Blanc and a Grenache Red. So those are my suggestions. Of course, you can do whatever you want. You can just go back to rule number 2.
Which is, there are no rules.
There are no rules.
Thank you, Uncle Bill. With that, I got my wine, and you know, this is to Uncle Bill's wife, Aunt Helen, who says you should always cook with a glass of wine because it brings you joy. And right now, we could all use a little extra joy. So I'm gonna have a glass of wine, but you have whatever you like. If you don't drink, that's great. Have whatever you enjoy. And cheers to you all. Happy cooking, and I'm excited for tonight to get started. Thank you. All right, let me have a sip. Thank you for the suggestions, Uncle Bill. All right, a lot going on tonight. So I have my oven preheated to 425. By the way, my floor cleaner, also known as my dog, is out. So if you hear something weird or see something go behind me, or if I trip all of a sudden, it's probably him. So maybe he'll come say hi to us later. He's just waiting for me to be done right now. His name is Jax. All right, so we're gonna get started. And I'm gonna be going back and forth some between the dishes, and you're gonna notice, you're gonna feel like I'm just doing a lot of random things, and it's gonna all come together at the end, which is totally fine, because that's kind of what we're doing. We're prepping all these individual ingredients, and we're bringing them together at the end for these bowls. And the thing about a bowl is you can do different grains, different toppings, different proteins, different sauces. So I just made up 2 that sounded good to me based off of what I have right now. So I'm gonna get started. I cooked rice ahead of time just because I didn't want to overwhelm myself now, but I am gonna cook some quinoa for those of you that haven't cooked it before. And quinoa, just like rice, you cook at a ratio of 2 parts liquid to 1 part grain. One more disclaimer, the internet's been kind of wonky the last couple of weeks, so if I start to get choppy or I get cut off, which has happened a couple times, I will be back on as quickly as possible. So don't fret, just stick around, have a party, talk amongst yourselves, and I'll be back as quickly as I possibly can. So for my quinoa here, I just have a pot that I'm gonna put 1 cup of quinoa that I rinsed. I just put this here in a fine mesh strainer to show you that I rinsed it. You know, people are in different fields whether or not you truly need to rinse it. Some say it releases the bitter note that's on the outside. I don't know if there's a difference. I just do it anyway. And then I'm doing 2 cups of, I'm doing a chicken stock. You can do, if you have any stock on hand, you can also do a little wine in stock. You can just do water. I like to add stock or something in my liquid because generally things that absorb liquid are gonna taste better if you have a flavorful liquid. So I did the same thing when I cooked my rice. I made a flavorful liquid for it to cook in. To this, I'm also going to add some things you might not think of. I'm going to add just a little bit of orange. I have a half an orange, and I'm going to squeeze that juice in there. It's kind of a sweet, bright note, and this is for my sweet, kind of bright dish, so it'll go well, but it does change a little as we cook it. So the other half of the orange I'm going to save for my fresh vinaigrette, so we get that fresh orange flavor. And I'm also going to do a little bit of tomato paste. If you don't have these tubes, you need to start getting these instead. They're usually with the regular tomato paste, but they don't go bad. You know how you in that big can, you just have tomato paste that goes bad. This stays in your fridge indefinitely, and you can just use what you need. I'm adding a little bit of tomato paste because it has a lot of that umami or savory robust flavor. And then I'm also gonna add a little bit of salt just so it absorbs that salt in there. You can add other things with umami. I like to add Worcestershire sauce or soy sauce in there as well sometimes. You could saute onions and garlic first. It doesn't really matter. You can do whatever you want. But I like a little acid, a little umami, and a little saltiness, and it's going to absorb some of that flavor. All right, I'm going to turn that on the back. Go ahead and cover it. I'm going to bring it to a simmer. Just like rice, quinoa is going to cook to be about 3 times the amount. So if you want, by putting in 1 cup, I'm going to get 3 cups of cooked product. Same with rice. I hear a lot of people cook way too much, not realizing that. All right, so that's going, I put it on my back burner just to keep it out of my way. I tend to things I don't need actively on my back burner just to get them out of the way. And now I'm gonna do a quick marinade on a pork tenderloin that I trimmed here. I like pork tenderloin because it cooks really fast and it's just delicious. The key here is you don't really want to overcook it. And in this marinade, you could do a lot longer too, but I'm gonna do it, you know, pretty quick just for the sake of this. You could marinate it up to overnight. So I actually got this off the Red Raspberry website and just did a few little of my own, what I call using my chefness, adding what I felt like adding to it, because you don't have to follow any recipe exactly how it is. Actually, I encourage you to make it your own all the time. And to this, I'm going to add a cup of frozen raspberries. I really like the frozen because they're picked at peak ripeness. Really all frozen fruits and vegetables are. Isn't that color just so beautiful? It'll stain, careful. And then I'm gonna add, I'm gonna add a little mustard just for that little tartness in the background. And I really like the flavor of mustard with pork as well. I'm gonna add some balsamic vinegar. We have this fun little olive oil and vinegar shop here that I got this from. It's dark chocolate balsamic vinegar. So, you know, support your local shops when you can, or some of them you might be able to order. They have a lot of really fun vinegars and olive oils there. And I never use this, and I thought chocolate balsamic would go really, really well with this. So I'm gonna do about a third a cup of that.
Leah, somebody in the class said, named the cultural attaché, said there's a great tube called Umami Bomb, which has a mix of tomato paste, olives, and anchovies. So it's like your
Where do you find that? That sounds amazing.
Shot. Yeah, tell us.
That's awesome. And I'm also going to add, again, you could just do regular balsamic, you could do other vinegars, I have this smoked honey and I thought it would be fun, so I'm using it, but you could do regular, you could also do sugar, you could do anything with just a little bit of sweetness. You don't need a lot. It's just gonna help bring out the natural sweetness in the raspberries. And let me see, is there anything, I'm also gonna add a little bit of onion. I've been supporting my local farmers markets doing a weekly box, and they gave me these little spring onions. So I'm gonna chop up some of those to put in there. Again, now is the time more than ever to support our farmers, support just anyone that's trying to make a living. So I'm just gonna kind of chunk this up, these little onions, and put a little bit of onion in there, about 4 tablespoons, about a quarter cup's worth. And then I'm going to do some, if you know me by now, if you've been here, you know I like spicy. So of course I'm gonna do some red chili flakes. But if you don't wanna do red chili flakes, you don't have to, if you don't like things spicy. And other than that, I'm just gonna do a little bit of garlic and then salt and pepper, and we're gonna be good to go. I'm going to blend this because I kind of like the idea of a kind of smooth marinade and reduction. You could just kind of chop it by hand without the liquid in there, obviously. If you wanted a little chunkier, don't do any of that. I would just cut your onion smaller and cut your garlic smaller, and you can keep it chunky as well. That's okay. So I'm just gonna give this garlic a rough chop. I'm gonna blend it so it doesn't have to be perfect. And then I'm gonna add some salt and pepper. Always add more later. I'll give it a taste and see how it's going. For this, I'm gonna use, because not a lot of liquid, so I usually use my blender, but I'm not gonna use it for this. I actually have this little bullet, which is just this little blender, which I use for stuff like this. You might have one of these. And see if I have enough liquid in there, hopefully. Yeah. That looks great. Let me give it a taste. You know, you could almost turn this into a vinaigrette too, by just adding a little olive oil if it even needs it. Let me taste it. Oh, that's gonna be awesome. Oh, that's good. It's gonna be delicious. So I'm gonna put it right on my pork tenderloin. You don't need to, just do it, you know, however much you need to give it a nice coating. And then we're gonna still use whatever's left to, and we're gonna cook it down. Just any raw pork off of it and use it as a sauce. I'm just gonna dump it all in there actually. And then we'll just cook it all down. So if you use something as a marinade, you can use it as a sauce. But you have to cook it to cook out any of the raw meat that might have been in there. So I'm just gonna cover my pork for at least a few minutes while I'm doing some other stuff and let it marinate. Let me throw this in my sink. That was good. Nice and garlicky. I like the hit of mustard I got in there, the little sweetness and the pretty color from those raspberries. Just making sure it's nice and coated. Okay, great. Oh, Jax came to visit. Hey, Jax. He must be thinking I dropped some food. Okay, so we have our pork marinating, and now I'm gonna get some of my veg roasting. So I always try to get things that are gonna take a little longer done first. It's usually things like roasting and my grains. So I just found what I had to use up. And since I have my oven going, I'm gonna go ahead and, I've done this before for those of you that haven't been here, but for those of you that have, you might have seen this. I'm roasting a head of garlic just to have on hand because like I said, I'm of the mindset, if I'm gonna have my oven on, I may as well fill it up. So I don't have to, just taking a whole head of garlic, cutting the top off to expose the top, putting it in a piece of foil right in the middle, drizzle it with a little bit of olive oil. Just do a touch of salt in there too. You don't have to though. And then when I have it sitting in the foil, I just bunch it up around the sides like a little pouch. See that? It's just a little pouch of garlic. And I'm gonna throw that in the corner of my oven. Watch out, Jax. Jax is trying to help. And that's gonna take about, on average, about 40, 45 minutes to roast. You're gonna do it till it's soft and looks nice and caramelized. So I have that going in there. And now I have some Brussels sprouts. Let me turn down my quinoa. It's boiling pretty hard. I want it to simmer. Any grain, you want to bring it down to a simmer. So I'm gonna turn down that heat once it starts coming to a boil. And actually that reminds me, let me set the timer for about 10 minutes to check that. With quinoa, when you're looking for it to be done, it almost looks like it sprouts. It's the endosperm, the middle of the little grain that's coming out. So once it looks, you see this little curly Q come out of it, that generally means it's done.
Leah,
I have, yeah.
Thank you. Someone asked if you could show how you've cut the Brussels.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that. So these, all I did was I trimmed the tip and then I just cut them in half. If they're really small though, you can just leave them whole. They're gonna cook faster and they're nice and tender. So I had some small ones in there and I just kept it whole and trimmed off the edge and take any yellow leaf that you see off. You don't need to do much. And you can just keep them whole, it's just gonna take longer. You want them a little smaller though so they get crispy. If they're too big, they won't be able to stay crispy on the outside and cook on the inside. That's why I cut them in half. And if they're really big, you might even want to quarter them. So I'm gonna keep this really simple. I'm just gonna do salt and pepper because I'm gonna have that lovely raspberry sauce to go with this. So I don't need to add a lot. And you know what? Roasted, if you've never had roasted Brussels sprouts, you're missing out. That might be your gateway to Brussels sprouts if you think you don't like them. So I'm just tossing them with a little olive oil, salt and pepper, and I'm just gonna put them on a sheet tray. And for these sheet, you wanna make sure with anything you're roasting to put it in a nice thin layer, because if not, it will not get crispy. No, your oven doesn't cook very, you want to do a little higher temperature. What was that question?
Onion in the oven the way you're cooking the garlic?
Sure, why not? Yeah, you can roast whole onions, absolutely. People do, they get nice and soft and kind of gooey on the inside. That's fun to make sauces with. All right, so I'm gonna put my Brussels sprouts in. I'm gonna turn my fan on. Sorry for the little fan noise in the background. We don't want to put the fire alarm off. And then I'm going to do some sweet potatoes. And for these, I just want to show you how I cut them. So these are pretty long, and you know, you might find it easier. I say if things are longer than your knife, it's generally easier. This is just about the length of my knife, but to cut it in half to deal with it a little easier. So I'm going to cut it in half. And then I'm going to cut an end off just to give me a flat surface. And that gives me a nice flat surface to work with on my sweet potato. Then I'm gonna cut down into planks. Now, keep in mind, the smaller you cut, the faster it's gonna cook. So I'm gonna keep these pretty small because I don't have all day. You know, these are probably like, I don't know, 3/4 of an inch dice. So if you're seeing what I'm doing, I cut it into those planks, and then I cut the planks into strips, and then I turn those strips and I cut it into a dice from there. That's generally how I dice anything. I'll show you on the other half again. So have my sweet potato, cut an end off, put it flat. From there, I'm starting on the right, going to the left because I'm right-handed. If you're left-handed, you're gonna start from the left. Cut down about the width that you want, starting from the left. Then you have it in planks, right? Take those, lay them on your cutting board, cut those into strips. Turn that, and you have like, you know, like almost French fries, but bigger. Turn those, and then you do your dice from there. This is how I would dice anything from a tomato to a potato to a carrot. Anything that's kind of round is going to be the same general process with the exception of an onion, which I go over in other episodes. So I love sweet potato. It's obviously really good for you. Anything that's colorful is going to be good for you. I also have regular potatoes that would go great in this, and you know they're still good for you too. They're just a little starchier. And as I said, I would love to hear what vegetables, if you guys are roasting any vegetables, and what you might be roasting. If so, has anyone said? So I'm gonna just do the rest of this. Now this will probably, because I'm cutting it small, take maybe 20, 25 minutes to roast. You know, if I was doing bigger chunks, it could take closer to 40 to 45 minutes. So we gotta take that all into consideration before you start chopping. Is how long, you know, how long do you want it cooked? How do you want to eat it at the end? Do you want it to fit on a spoon? Do you want it to go on a fork? I always used to say this to my culinary students. They would just start whacking into their food, and I would say, you know, you didn't consider your end product before you started doing this. So you always want to do that, and make sure that when you're cutting different pieces, make sure when you're thinking about how it's going to look, you want them to be similar to other things that you're cutting. All right, so we're just about done here. I'm probably not going to roast all these right now. It's just me, a lot of veg. So again, I'm going to keep this pretty simple because I have beautiful dressing, and I'm just going to do olive oil, salt, and pepper. Okay, but you can put seasonings on here: cumin, garlic powder, taco seasoning. It doesn't matter. So I love having a fresh pepper grinder. To me, you can't beat the flavor of fresh pepper versus, you know, the already ground pepper, which if that's what you have, that's really fine. And, you know, I tend to keep my kosher, I use kosher salt. I tend to keep it here so I can grab it and pinch it, feel it, and see how much. I find with the shaker, you can't really see how much is going in, and I like to be able to see it. So get this little tray here. I have this little mini tray. You're sitting on top of a toaster oven. That's where my tray is. Cooking and quarantine cooking, truly. All right, again, you want to do a nice single layer to not overcrowd it. It'll steam rather than roast if you have it too crowded. So a nice even layer. Put that in my oven. All right, so now those are roasted. I'm going to work on pickling some raspberries and pickling onion. You can pickle pretty much anything, but this will be a lot of fun. I've talked to you about pickling onions before, so I want to show you because a lot of you asked about it. Just checking my quinoa. It's getting close. I'm actually going to leave that lid off because it looks like it's almost done. And I want it to absorb that water. If I take the lid off, more of the water is going to evaporate. So. All right, so I'm doing my pickling. This is a quick pickle. I'm gonna get my pickling liquid ready in a pot. So it's gonna be equal parts. I generally do, and there's, you know, some people do more or less, and some people don't do any water, but I do about equal parts of vinegar and water. Red wine or cider would be great for this. You could also just use white vinegar or other types of vinegar, but those are what I like the best. I'm gonna do a little pickling spice, which you don't have to do, but you can do. You could also do things like mustard seeds, coriander, fennel, star anise, whatever you want. And then I'm gonna do, for pickling, you really need a little bit of sugar. You don't need a lot. And then I'm gonna, of course, do salt. You need that for that salty, briny flavor. And I think that was it. Yep, pretty simple, right? I just put it in this pot, and now I'm gonna heat this up, and then I'm gonna pour it over my raspberries and onions. Let me just put that on.
What's the difference? Lori is asking, what's the difference between a sweet potato and a yam? She uses them interchangeably and wonders if she should prefer one or another in certain cooking situations.
There is technically a difference. You'll see they're different colors, but usually they're mislabeled at the store. I think we can find them both here, but in most of the U.S., you're probably more getting a sweet potato rather than a yam. Yams tend to be a little more starchy. And a little less orange, if I'm recalling correctly.
Cultural attaché just chimed in and basically said the same thing. A true yam, not sweet, is widely used in Caribbean and African cuisine. In Louisiana, yam is really a sweet potato. Marketing.
Yeah, so they are interchangeable. I mean, we use them interchangeably, but they do actually, in real life, have a different flavor profile and are different starch levels. But yeah, they are actually used interchangeably quite a bit here. Good question.
If you could say the pickling spices one more time, I'll write them in the chat.
So I actually just put pickling spice in there, but you can make your own pickling spice. I've also just done it without any spice, just the salt and sugar. That's usually what I do, but sometimes I want to put that pickling spice in there. So now what I'm doing is getting my red onion ready for pickling. I'm julienning it or cutting it into strips. And for this, you want them a little thinner, but they're also going to get pickled. And the cool thing about pickled onions, if you've been to my class before, and my friend Heather, she's actually in this class, and she loves pickled onions and inspired me to really get into them again. Checking on my quinoa, see how that's going. All right, I'm gonna put the lid back on. It only needs a couple more minutes, I think. On for just a couple minutes. And you can get this pickled red onion, and then you keep it on hand for weeks in your fridge. And I top everything on it. If you've seen any of my pictures on Instagram, if you guys follow us on Instagram, you totally should if you don't, or Facebook. You'll notice I have pickled onions on most things. So I'm just cutting them into strips, and I'm only going to stick with a half of an onion for now. I have this nice little jar here. You can use any kind of holding vessel, Tupperware, jar, whatever it may be. And this and the raspberries, which I already put in a jar, these are frozen. You can use fresh, but I like the frozen, as I said, if I can. And frozen is great now because they're widely available. And I put these in the jar, and then I'm just going to pour the hot liquid over them and let them sit. But because these both have that purple-red flavor, it's going to really impart that color into the pickling liquid. It's going to be quite pretty. You'll see. Let me just see how my liquid's doing. If it's hot yet. Yeah, it's getting there. You just need to heat it up. You don't need to, just want to melt all that, incorporate that salt and sugar in there. Get all those flavors melted together. So then what I'm going to do is pour them into these jars. Just let them sit. Now, usually you want to let it cool and sit for a few hours. I'm going to use them immediately now, but you can do that for yourself. And if you're going to use it now, that's fine. They'll still be good. They'll get better as they sit.
Bridget asked if we have any good recipes for pickled meat, like pickled pork, the kind we can only find around New Orleans. I have never seen one, but I'll keep it.
No, I'm sure they exist, but it's probably not much different, than this, like a pickling brine. Can you all see that? I'm just pouring the liquid over it. And you know what? I don't think I did quite enough, but it'll cook down. I'll be fine. All right. so you can see. See, I got that covered. I actually have the recipe for the brine here. You know, I wasn't using the full 12 ounce bag. I only did a cup of raspberries. I just rinsed out my pan because I'm going to end up using it again for that brine, for the marinade rather. Okay, so those are pickling, and now I'm going to get my pork ready to go. Now that it's been sitting for a minute, I'm going to heat up a cast iron pan. Check my quinoa. That's about good to go. All right, shut my quinoa off. Let it just sit there and absorb the rest of the liquid for a minute. Move this out of the way. Check my oven, see how it's doing. Everything seems to be roasty toasty in there. It's starting to smell good. Okay, so I have a cast iron pan here that I'm going to heat up. I love cooking with cast iron. You've heard me talk about it. I mean, we've talked about it a few times if you've been here before. They seem intimidating, but they're really not that hard to take care of once you get used to them. They're really not hard to begin with. You just got to get past your fear. So I'm going to heat that up. And while that's heating, I'm going to get my pork here out of my marinade. And I'm going to whip in the pan with some olive oil. You need some fat. There's no fat in the marinade, so we're going to have to add olive oil to the pan to sear it. While that's doing that, I'm also going to go ahead and heat this small cast iron that I have. Someone gave it to me as a gift. I don't always have this many. You can use any small pan for this, but I'm going to go ahead and toast some sunflower seeds while I'm on here. You can do the same thing with nuts. And toasting just kind of makes them a little brown. It brings out some of those flavors. And I love to do like toast nuts to put on things like salads. You can do any kind of nut or seed, really toast it to bring out the essential oils that are in there. So all I'm going to do is heat my pan and add these sunflower seeds straight to it, no oil because there's oils naturally in it, to toast them. And the thing is, with toasted nuts, you have to watch them because they burn very easily. So once they start to get aromatic, you're going to take them right out of the pan or they'll continue to cook in there. You can also toast nuts in the oven by putting them on a tray, putting them in the oven, and just kind of shaking it around. The same thing, you're just gonna, it's gonna take like a couple minutes, maybe 5 minutes, depending on what you're doing at most, to get them nice and toasty. It's the same way you would toast coconut in the oven, same thing. I'm gonna do, again, just add nice color and brings out some of that flavor. So here, I'll show you. See that? And I'm just gonna keep an eye on it so that it doesn't burn. I have my other cast iron right next to it. When you're searing a piece of meat, it's going to give you that nice brown color on the outside. And I see people mess it up a lot because they let the pan get hot enough first. You need the heat to give it that color, the caramelization, the Maillard browning. And you also need to not mess with it too much once you put it in the pan. You can also do this on the grill. This works really great on a grill. So I'm just going to, let me turn my heat up a little, like fan up a little. There's a lot of some smoke coming out of that oven. My pan's getting nice and hot, and I'm about to make more with searing the pork. The good thing about my cast iron too is I can put it straight into the oven. I don't have to dirty another tray. So I'm getting my cast iron hot, watching my toasted sunflower seeds, which are actually pretty good. So I'm gonna go ahead and take these off the heat before they get burnt. You don't need that. Just do this. Scrape them. All right. Taking the sunflower seeds off. No need to burn them. And if you do burn them, just start over. It'll be fine. Use some fresh ones. It's a good practice. I still burn them to this day sometimes, and then I remember that I have to watch it all the time. So I got my pan nice and hot for my pork tenderloin. Move that oil around. Don't have oil, it will stick. You need fat when you're searing anything, when you're cooking things like meat. And then I'm just gonna lay my pork tenderloin. You wanna hear that sizzle. I'm just gonna leave it be to get that color on it. That's so pretty, that marinade, those raspberries, beautiful. All right, so now what I'm gonna do is put the rest of this marinade into that same, I'm gonna use the same pot I used for the pickling liquid. No need for me to dirty up another pot. And then I'm gonna cook this to cook off the raw pork and to just thicken it just a little. This doesn't need to be thickened too much. It'll make it a little sweeter, reduce some of the flavor. All right, there we go. So I'm just gonna put this on the burner right behind it, real low, just to let it cook off some. To this pork, I'm going to add, just because I had them and they were starting to turn, I'm gonna add some sliced mushrooms, some cherry tomatoes that I needed to use up, and another one of those spring onions that I could just need to use. Actually, I have a smaller one here. No, I need a bigger one. And what I'm gonna do is sear it in that pan and then add these back in the pan with it. And the reason I chose to add these with it is because they're gonna take probably about 20 minutes, the same amount of time that the pork tenderloin will cook. And you know, it'll just add some aromatics. It'll be nice. So I'm just gonna cut my onion in strips. And again, you don't have to do this part. I'm just doing it because to show off and be fancy. No, that's not why I'm doing it. I'm doing it because I needed to cook these things anyway. Because I have a lot of produce in there that's starting to, you know, reach maturity from my farm share that I got. So, you know, I'm just cooking whatever I can right now, and I'll have it in my fridge available. Let me check this. When you sear meat, if it's sticking to the pan, added oil in it, it's probably not ready to turn. It release pretty easily. Can you see that? Yeah. It's gonna release pretty easily when it's ready to turn. Look at that color. Turn that. I'm actually gonna turn it down just a little. It's a little darker than I need it to be, which is fine. The sugars are gonna make it a little darker too. So you might have to adjust your heat a little bit. That really looks nice. That'll be delicious. So I'm just gonna sear it on both sides. In general, pieces of meat like this, especially ones that are gonna cook faster, you can get that color on the outside in two ways. One is to sear it first and put it in the oven. There's also what's called a reverse sear, when you can sear it after it comes out. The other way is to use the temperature in the oven to get it the color on the outside. Okay, so now that I've seared it, let me just get this third side just a little bit. I'm gonna go ahead and add in my floor cleaners in here, cleaning the floor. I'm gonna add in some onions. I'm gonna add just a little more oil just to be on the safe side so it doesn't burn. I'm gonna add in my onion stack. Don't trick me. Don't trick me, buddy. And some sliced tomatoes, or sliced mushrooms rather. And then I have some cherry tomatoes. I just needed to use them up. And then I'm gonna do a little salt and pepper over the whole thing, because everything you can usually use a little bit of salt. You don't need to go crazy. Just know, cooking at home, you're going to reduce your salt intake. Okay, so I'm just going to move this stuff around my pan and kind of set my pork tenderloin on top of it. I'll show you. Then I'm going to put it in my oven from here. Doesn't that look good? And again, you don't have to do that first. I just had it and I needed to use it, so I did. Put the whole thing in the oven. Forgot to turn on my, oh, just didn't turn on. All right. Oh. Okay, so we're getting really close. Let me just check on everything in the oven, see how it's doing. I'm gonna shake around my Brussels sprouts. Starting to look nice and brown. The high temps is really the trick to get them crispy. Yeah, they're looking good. Flip them. Try to get both sides. Looking really nice. Check my sweet potatoes. Those are almost done. Sweet potatoes will need a little longer. It's okay. Not get as much color. All right. Okay, so while that's going, I'm just going to go ahead and fluff my quinoa just like I would rice. Generally want to let it sit for about 5 minutes first. So I'm going to bring this over here. Have my quinoa, still nice and hot. Take the lid off. I want it to cool down a little bit. I don't know if you can see how it looks like there's these little sprouts coming out. Probably not. The lighting's not good enough. I'm going to take my fork and just fluff it up. Same thing you would do with rice. And I've said this before, I'll say it again, with rice, you don't want to stir it till the end because it makes it too starchy. So I have my nice quinoa here. I'm just going to put that to the side and let it cool off a little bit. That's one of my more room temperature dish. So say hi. Say hi, Jax. Say hi, buddy. There he is. Don't worry, he's being a great floor cleaner. Okay, so now that we have everything in the oven, we're just gonna finish with our vinaigrette and searing a little shrimp. So first of all, I'm gonna heat the same saute pan that I used for my toasted ovens, or for my toasted, not ovens, for my toasted seeds, my sunflower seeds. And I'm gonna heat it to sear shrimp that I peeled and deveined. And that's gonna be my protein for my Mediterranean bowl. So I took the vein out and I peeled them. And I just like to keep a bag of frozen shrimp in my freezer so I can use it whenever I need it. These only take a couple minutes to cook. You don't need to do a lot to shrimp. Okay, turn that down. Turn that down, turn that up. My sauce in the back is still cooking down with my marinade. That'll start to pop and bubble, so make sure you watch it and stir it. Okay, so I'm just gonna, again, I'm gonna keep my shrimp really simple. Season it with a little bit of salt and pepper. Again, you can do whatever you like here. But I'm getting a lot of my flavor here from the sauces I'm making, so I'm not going too crazy in the seasoning. And then I have my pan heating over here, and I'm gonna do the same thing. Put olive oil in it, heat it up. Once the oil's hot, you can always tell when it's hot because it starts to shimmer. It looks like it's shimmering in the pan. Let me turn on my timer for like 15 minutes to check my pork. It doesn't take very long. And once that's hot, just gonna lay your shrimp down. I'll show this to you in just a second. Nice thin layer. Seafood does not take as long as meat to cook. Why it's always one of the last things I generally do, unless you're roasting a whole fish or something. See how hot that is? That's what you're looking for when you're searing. You want to hear it sizzle. You want to see it sizzle. I'm not touching it until it's ready to flip. I'm looking for color. I want that color, which is that color is going to be flavor. See how my pickled stuff are looking good. Look, getting a nice color within the liquid. See how pretty that is? Same with my onions, starting to color the liquid. And the longer it sits, the longer it'll color. Okay, so now I'm just going to make a quick vinaigrette. And I'm going to grab a jar to put, oh yeah, there it is. Okay, so I'm just going to do a vinaigrette that I can shake in a jar, but you can do it also in a bowl or in a blender. So I'm just going to do a little bit of garlic powder. I have some lemon here and a half an orange. I'm going to squeeze them in here. Notice I'm squeezing it over my hand to catch any seeds. Man, this hour is just flying by. Is anyone making anything? How's it going? I haven't heard a lot of questions or comments from y'all.
I know it's been pretty mellow today, huh, y'all?
Maybe I have you working really hard. All right, let's check my shrimp. Get it flipped.
I got the wrong menu. That's why I'm not chiming in.
Did you get the follow-up email earlier with the, I sent it a couple minutes after the first ones were sent.
It's roast leg of lamb, spring pasta with mint peas and yogurt and Greek.
Yeah, there
fried
was a follow-up email that went out about, I don't know.
I got the ingredients for that.
I hope no one bought a leg of lamb. If so, then you should cook some lamb. Actually, I hope you did buy lamb because you can watch the old video where I cooked a leg of lamb a couple weeks ago and you can enjoy that lamb. Let me show you the great color on the shrimp. This is what you get when you properly sear. You really need that high heat. And you're really, for shrimp, just looking for it not to be translucent in the middle anymore. So back to my vinaigrette. I'm also doing a little bit of red wine vinegar. You can do any acid. So vinaigrette is generally 1 part acid to 3 parts oil. And it could be any vinegar or mix of vinegars or citrus. So I'm doing a mix today. I generally like 2 parts oil to 1 part acid, but I like it a little more acidic. And then I'm gonna add some, I have a nice, I talk a lot about my little herb garden on my porch. And this is kind of my Greek inspiration. I'm Greek, my family's Greek. So I'm doing some fresh oregano, but you could also do dried. You could also do parsley or basil. So I just take the leaves by running my hands opposite down the stem. If you use fresh, just keep in mind, and those of you may have heard this from me before, use 3 times the amount of fresh that you will dry. So if you're gonna change something in a recipe from fresh to dry, it's 3 times the amount of fresh to dry. All right, I'm turning off my shrimp and I'll go back to that in a second. I'm just gonna give this a little chop, this fresh oregano for my vinaigrette. And I'm not making a lot of vinaigrette, but you can make a whole jar of it and stick it in your fridge and have it as a nice dressing for salads or dips or whatever it is you might like. All right, and then I'm going to put this into my jar. To that, I'm gonna add some salt and pepper. I'm keeping this real simple. It'll be nice and bright from the citrus. And a little garlicky from that garlic powder. And then I'm gonna add my oil. So I'm looking at this. You could also add mustard in this, by the way. Just show you. I'm just gonna eyeball it. I see how far up my vinegar goes, and because I like it a little more acidic, I'm just gonna add about 2 times that amount of oil, and then you have to taste and adjust. Usually vinaigrettes have a little sweetener in it, but I'm not gonna add any sweetener to this. I'm just gonna keep it nice and bright. My shrimp is done. I have a fresh bowl, so I don't have that raw shrimp in there to put it in. I don't want it to overcook, so I'm just gonna put it on the side. Beautiful. It smells great. Okay, and then I'm just gonna shake this vinaigrette. I have a bunch of different lids, so just find the one that fits. That one will fit. Shake it. And then this can even just store it in your fridge like this if you have extra. I'll have a little extra. All right, let's see. I think Ramey sent the lamb because she secretly wanted to eat more lamb. She got to eat it when I made it. So, was that it, Ramey? You wanted to secretly make more lamb?
100%.
It's not a secret anymore. That's perfect. That's gonna be so good. So I'm just gonna put that to the side. And I'm pretty much like wrapping up. I have most of my ingredients ready here. The pork's looking good. I'm gonna go ahead and take out my sprouts. They look nice and colorful. Ooh, by the way, I have my fun earrings. Today I have chef knives on. Look at these. Are they fun? I love them. A local artist made them. And then I'll show you my fun leggings. Look at that beautiful color on those Brussels sprouts. And then my fun, like, I don't know, they're kind of my Christmassy leggings, but they're not really Christmas. They're like light, crazy light things down the side. So, you know, you got to have fun when you're cooking, and that's what I'm doing. Okay, so that's ready. I'm going to give a couple more minutes and check my tenderloin. Let me just get these bowls kind of ready to go, and then we'll be pretty close to on time. Maybe a couple minutes after, but we'll be good. So I have, what I'm going to do is start to get the rest of the ingredients for my bowl ready. So I have here a cucumber and some more cherry tomatoes. I used up all that I had. I have some chickpeas that I drained and rinsed. And then I also have some fresh basil from my garden, and I'll show you how I ship and out that. By the way, I turned off my marinade after it came to a boil. Again, I just wanted to cook off the raw pork from it. So I'm going to do the cucumber kind of the same way that I told you to do the what did I cut that was round? Oh, sweet potato. So I'm just going to cut off the ends. I'm going to cut it into strips. It's a little shorter, so I'm going to line those up. That's what I would call a plank. Cut those into strips. Turn it, and then dice it. And I just want nice little bite-sized dices here. You could also pickle this cucumber. It'd be really good. You could do that same quick pickle recipe on the cucumber. Or you could just toss it with a little vinegar and oil and salt. You don't need to do much. So I have my cuke here. I'm gonna put that on top of my grain bowl. Be a nice crunch. I love these bowls because it's a great way to get your veggies. We're celebrating whole grains this week. We're getting our veggies and our fruit and our protein. We're getting like everything in this meal. It's awesome. Okay, and then I'm just gonna have these cherry tomatoes, which are also from my farmer's market, and I just wanted to use up, so I used some of them for roasting, and I used some of them for this. And now I don't have to worry about them going bad anymore. And I generally love to roast anything or freeze it if it's starting to turn. And I don't know if all of you saw on Facebook, I talk about freezing scraps a lot, but for those of you that follow us on Facebook, I actually made a smoothie from some of the scraps that I've been freezing that you can check out. It's on Facebook Live. I think I did that yesterday. So I have my halved cherry tomatoes. I have my diced cucumber. I also have some artichoke hearts here. And then I have some chickpeas, kind of a Mediterranean feel. Okay, so I have my quinoa here. And with this, I'm actually not gonna, no, I'll do all of it. I'm gonna toss it with some of my vinaigrette. You could also drizzle it on the top, but I want that flavor in there. So with this one, I'm gonna toss it. That smells good. I'm gonna add just a little more salt in there too, because I didn't put a lot when I cooked it. So I'm just tossing right in my bowl. And then I'm going to start plating it. So I'm gonna do like a family portion here. But you can also do this individually. Just a nice mound of that in the middle. I guess Jax and I will be eating well today. And then I'm going to add some cucumber, some cherry tomato, and chickpeas. I'm gonna do some chickpeas. A nice protein. I love beans. Good way to use them. Also, the roasted chickpeas I did the other day would go really, really well on this. And then I'm gonna do some artichoke hearts. And then I'm going to add my shrimp. I cut the tails on to keep it pretty. You'll see it in a second. I can't wait to eat this. I'm so excited. It's gonna be awesome. Wish you all could be here to eat it with me. Can't wait till we can have a meal together again. But you know what? This is the next best thing. And then I'm gonna actually add some quick pickled red onions to this. It'll be a nice little tart, acidic bite and nice crunch to it. Again, these would be even better if they sat longer. I'm gonna get some of those from the bottom that really got some of that vinegar in there. These will be even more delicious tomorrow, cold. Okay, and what else? I think I was going to add some fresh basil to this. So let me show you how to do a chiffonade basil, but look how good this is. Look pretty. Oh, I don't want to remind me to take a picture of this before I eat it. It's a good one.
That's beautiful.
It is. I can't
What I
wait.
love about this menu tonight is that it's a really good, it feels like forever away that we're all going to be back to our regular schedules with, you know, some of us going into work and everything, but this is such a good meal planning lesson for anyone who does work from an office or go to school or anything like that.
You're so right, because really, if I have quinoa ready, or if I have any meat already cooked in my fridge, like that, if I have a dressing, these are the kind of things you can just toss together. That's why I cook things in the oven when they're ready, and then I can toss things like this together pretty quickly. So I have some fresh basil from my garden. I'm gonna show you how to chiffonade it, which is like ribbons. So I'm gonna pile multiple leaves on top of each other and then roll them. So pile and roll. It's a great way to practice your knife skills. That should be good. I have a nice little pile here. Can you see that? Roll it away from me like a little tube. I don't know if you can see that there. Not the perfect kitchen situation, but hey, we're making it work. And then I'm just going to take my knife and right across the little tube that I rolled into thin little strips. This is called a chiffonade. You can also do similar with greens. It's a nice little garnish. I always try to do this last because it will start to brown as it sits there. So I'm just gonna do a little fresh basil too. Little chiffonade. Awesome. Oh, that looks great. Let me show you. A little better lighting over here. Doesn't that look good? You know what all I'm missing on here that I might add is feta. Because feta makes it better, so I'm probably gonna add some feta to this before I eat it. And I have some. If you've been following me, you know I love feta. I can't wait to eat that. So that's one bowl complete. That's gonna be nice, refreshing for the summer. And look, perfect timing. We're just about gonna be finished with everything else. I think that's my pork tenderloin. We're gonna check the temperature of that, see if it's done. For a pork tenderloin, I usually cook it for a kind of medium, rare medium, to about 140. And then it'll carry over about 5 degrees. That means things carry over cook. Look at that. Oh, that's beautiful. Anytime you cook meat and you take it out of the oven, it continues to cook for 5 to 10 degrees, depending on the size. And since this isn't huge, you know, the lamb I cooked would have cooked more like 10 degrees. This cooks more about 5 degrees. So I'm just going to put my thermometer in at an angle in the middle so I get in the thickest part in the middle. And I'm looking for it to register about 135, 140 is probably perfect. I think it's gonna be good. No, I'm closer to 130 now. It's not gonna take me much longer, so I'm just gonna cook this for just a few more minutes. Once it starts getting close to the temperature you want it, you'll find it goes very fast. But don't wait too long. All right, so let me put that on for like 4 more minutes and it'll probably be good. All right, so in the interim, I cooked some rice off beforehand, so I'm gonna go ahead and get this in my bowl. I kept it warm over here. And I'm just gonna do a single portion just to show you, you can kind of do the same thing with a single portion here. And put some nice rice in here. Again, any grain, you can do this with any grains. You can do it with lentils. This would be great with lentils. I'll just do all of it. There we go. I also cook this with a little bit of chicken stock, salt, pepper. And then to this, I'm going to add the roasted veggies. So let me grab. Let me put this away. I'm gonna grab some of my Brussels sprouts. I also thought about doing sauteed greens with this. Let me make sure these taste okay. Oh, that was crispy and delicious. Do my happy dance. It's my happy food dance. That deserved it. Let me grab my sweet potatoes. I'm gonna throw those on there too. So perfectly done. Beautiful. They're gonna add some nice color, and I always tell people eat a rainbow. You know, it's gonna be good for you if you eat a rainbow. This would also be really good with roasted beets. And I'm a huge fan of roasted beets, so if you have those. And then, what else are we gonna add to that? Then we need our pork tenderloin and the mushroom and tomato once that comes out there too. And then we're gonna add our our toasted sunflower seeds and our pickled raspberries and a little bit of scallion to top it off. So I have some fresh green onion that I picked from my garden here. And I'm just gonna go ahead and slice this as a garnish. You'll notice I'm a big fan of adding fresh herbs as a garnish. So I'm going to do these at a little bit of an angle called a bias cut, just to look a little funner. Just put your knife at an angle or put the actual green onion at an angle. And you know, I'm still paying a lot of money for culinary school for these knife skills, so if you're not quite there yet, that's okay. If you haven't seen me before, I like to use these little bench scrapers to get all the product off of my cutting board. And that way I don't dull my knife either. All right, so and then I have my sauce here, which I cooked down a little bit. Nice and thick. You know what? You know what also works? If you don't have frozen raspberries, you could use raspberry jam in this, and it would actually work quite well. I would just take out the sugar, the sweetener in there, because the jam has it in there. But you could actually just use jam in place of the frozen raspberries and go really well. Okay, let's take that out of the oven and see if it's done. I think it's gonna be perfect. I can smell the garlic. That smells really good. That's probably getting close too. My mushrooms and tomatoes are absolutely perfect. What do I do with my thermometer? Oh, there it is. By the way, if you have a thermometer, you can get the electric ones. I tend to go old school because I can calibrate. I always have a problem with the electric ones, calibrating them. And if you've never heard of calibrating a thermometer, you're basically making sure that's perfect. You're making sure that it's reading an accurate temperature. So to calibrate a thermometer like this one, we're all done. I'll pull out that garlic in a minute and show you. But this thermometer calibrates by actually turning up at the top. There's like a little nut that you can turn. So the way you do it is you got to submerge it into a heavily iced water, and you want to make sure that it reads a temperature of 32 degrees, which is freezing. So when you're calibrating, if you make sure something's either going to freeze, register the temperature of freezing water at 32, or register the temperature of boiling water at 212 is what boiling is. So you need to calibrate and make sure it's actually reading accurate temperatures, or if not, you're gonna come up with an overcooked or undercooked product. So that's an important part of that. All right, so let me just let my pork tenderloin sit here for just a second. Almost done. Put these roasted, oh, this is gonna be so good. The roasted tomato and a little bit of that onion and mushroom. It's gonna be so much umami coming from that. Let's check that garlic. Let me check on that real quick and then we'll come back. I want to let this rest, let the pork tenderloin rest, because it'll retain more of the juices as I let it sit there. I'm just going to let it sit for a couple more minutes. Let's check this garlic out. I'm actually going to do it a little longer, starting to caramelize, but I really want to see a heavier caramelized color on top. So I'm just going to put it in for about 10 more minutes in that oven. And that's fine. Okay. Now let's just go ahead and carve up this pork. So it's super simple. You saw a pork tenderloin is not the same as a pork loin. People get them confused. Pork loin's much bigger. You can cook them similarly. It's going to take a little longer. I like pork tenderloin because it cooks so fast and it's so tasty. It's going to go really well with red wine. So after I've let it rest, ideally you can let it sit for a few more minutes, but this will be fine. I'm just going to take my knife and cut it on a bias at a little bit of an angle going across my pork tenderloin. And notice I'm keeping it in its natural shape because you'll see it'll help when I plate it. Oh, that smells amazing. The raspberry with that mustard and the vinegar. So now I'm just gonna take, depending on how thick you cut it, I only need about 3 pieces. A serving meat should really be about the size of the palm of your hand or a deck of playing cards. So, you know, about 3 to 4 ounces, and 3 pieces of this will be perfect with how thick I cut it. And then I'm just gonna put it right in the middle of my dish. I'll show you, I kept it in its natural shape, so now it really holds it when I put it in my bowl. And then to that, I'm gonna top it with some of that beautiful sauce, raspberry sauce, made from delicious frozen raspberries. We're just gonna go down into my little grain bowl and make it extra delicious. And then I'm gonna add some pickled raspberries, which will add a nice brightness and tartness. Oh, that's so pretty. So pretty. More. What a fun dish. Do you ever get these big pickling raspberries?
That's amazing.
Then I'm gonna add my green onions just for a little bright green color and a nice oniony flavor. And there is my wonderful, beautiful pork bowl. Can y'all see that? How's it look?
That looks amazing.
I have a lot of food for Jax and I to finish here now. All right, so you saw 2 very different bowls. We had our kind of more Mediterranean lighter bowl, sort of family style, and our individual raspberry pork bowl, which is beautiful. Thank you so much to our friends with Washington Raspberries. I've had a lot of fun and a lot of delicious meals now playing with the raspberries. We really appreciate the support. But I hope you all got to cook along. I'd love to hear if you cooked along what you made. Thank you so much for joining. This was a fun meal for me to make. I gotta say, there's a lot of components, but you know, the point is, like, if you have cooked grains around and you have cooked veg around or raw veg, it's easy to throw these things together. So now I'll have quinoa ready. I'll have roasted mushroom ready. I'll have sliced scallions ready. I'll have roasted sweet potato. I'll have, you know, my roasted Brussels sprouts. And as Rainey said, this is a great lesson in meal prep. And rather than thinking of just doing a whole meal all at once, think of ingredients you can keep on hand and mix and match into new ways. And if you think of all the different combinations of sauces and things like fun raspberries, everything from fruit to, you know, butter and yogurt. And if we think of all the fun things we can do, that really the possibilities are endless, and you can have a lot of fun. And you can just Google different grain bowls and get different ideas. But as you get more comfortable, you can start to feel inspired to create your own as well. So thank you all. I can't wait to see what you make. And Rainey, can you give a social media tag so people can, we'd love to see your pictures after you cook stuff or while you're cooking stuff. Thanks, Diane. Diane likes my earrings. Thank you, Diane. I love them too.
Did you see that George said, looks great, do you deliver to Waveland?
Might be a little far. I'll try to send it on Jax's back, but he might eat it on the way. Thank you all. And you know what? Hopefully from Waveland, you can come take a class at NOCHI once we're back on, once we get going again, and come make some stuff like this yourself. So thank you all so much. This has been a lot of fun. I've had a great time. Thank you for our friends with Washington Red Raspberries. I can't wait to eat my 2 dinners. I don't even know where to start. But I really appreciate you all coming. I want to tell you, starting next Thursday, I'm going to have a second chef here, Chef Zach. He's our baking and pastry instructor at NOCHI. So he's going to start doing more baked goods, and we'll be doing so starting next Thursday. So if you want to look at more of this versus baked, make sure you check the schedule. It'll be saying on the website who's leading the class.